Wait, stop. That's the one. Welcome to ZEN TENN Speaks, a show where I make new friends and reconnect with old ones. A show where everyone's stories may inspire you to tell your own story. In this podcast, we encourage everyone to get rid of shame, guilt, fear, doubt, and judgments for themselves and for others, and replace those with love, empathy, compassion, understanding, kindness, and to do your best in everything that you do. In essence, to get rid of things that no longer serve your well-being. To be true to yourself and be honest with others. No need to be politically correct. That's out the window with 2020. Here, we tell the raw, uncensored story, your story, and tell the truth as you see it. Make sure you live your fulfilled life without permission or apologies. So, if you have a juicy, interesting, raw, unapologetic story and inspiring, please make sure to contact me at zentenn21@gmail.com. It is ZENTENN21@gmail.com. Or you can find me on most social media platforms. You know it. The IG, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, OnlyFans. I mean, not really. But yes, OnlyFans. Just kidding. Not. As you may guessed it, my name is Zen, and welcome to the show. Today we have our guest. Our guest today is Jaime Talluto, also known as Armstrong. She just got married, so it's Jaime Armstrong. So Jaime and I met on Facebook on some addict recovery groups. And Jaime is a certified recovery peer coach and a YouTuber. And her links will be on the show notes, which I'll post below. And watching her videos, she's very interactive. And I assume that's your husband on the videos?
And my husband, yes, Adam, yes.
Awesome. Yes, her husband, Adam. And those videos are so, like, she's talking to you in person and she's like a friend. And so I urge you to go and watch her videos when you're done watching this. So welcome to the show, Jaime. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, me too. It's more exciting when someone else like you already have something going on and I can get to go and watch it and see what's happening in your life. And it gives you more story, basically, like, because a lot of people, they recover and they're just living everyday life, and that's fine too. But then you taking your story like further, and you giving back, and you serving your community in the way, and you helping people by just being you, and then you helping others. So I love that.
And I see that was really why it was so important to me, especially as a woman, because what happens with a lot of women is they're successful in recovery, they get their children back, they get their families back, and they go ahead and they just go do the mom thing, the mom life, the family life, which is beautiful, but we never hear from them anymore. We never see them, in the meetings. They don't have time to do, the sponsorship thing and to coach people and to help people because they've gone and now they're, getting reacclimated to their family life, which is amazing, but it's just, we don't hear from them anymore. So I wanted to make sure as a woman that other women could still find me and say, look, even after 5, 6, 7 years of recovery, I'm still here. I'm still active in the community. I still want you to be able to look and say, hey, here's what something that I might want to have, in the future.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad that you emphasize in that, like, as a woman, because I interview a lot of people who are doing what you're doing and more, and they're not women. So that's really interesting to see. Yeah. And also I made a post on my page. I was just like, it is interesting how women now, like when I interview people, they want to tell their story, and women come forth to tell their story. And when there's only a few men that does, but when they do, the men they made something out of it, like a business or a coach or something bigger. And the women just have a story, as you just mentioned, they're just going to be moms, etc., which is fine, but it's good that you are doing something more as well.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. You mentioned that, and I also noticed that. So tell us who you are and what brings you joy.
What brings me joy? For me, let's see. So my name is Jaime. I'm a woman in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that it has been over 6.5 years since I have had to use any mood or mind-altering substances or have a drink of alcohol to change the way that I feel. For me, living every day to help others, to empower others, and to see other people succeed brings me joy.
Nice. Great. So tell us about your shame, guilt, and fear. How are you working on overcoming them? Or if you have overcome them, what was your step? How'd you do it?
Oh, this is perfect. What a perfect question, because for me, even through my recovery and the accomplishments that I made, I had a lot of fear, shame, and guilt as being a mom who had, 2 children in active addiction. Okay. My son, I ended up giving him to my mom when he was maybe 3 years old. And the shame and guilt that I carried with me from that was just like, it really kept me in my active addiction. And then 6 years later, I had a daughter where I swore I would never do that again. I would never have a child. I would never put anything in front of them. I would never be, the kind of mom that I was to my son. And I had a daughter, and I was addicted to oxycodone. And I actually, when I had her, she had to stay in the NICU for 6 weeks because she was sick from my drug use. And that was terrible. That was a crazy amount of guilt and shame to carry. I also have a history of prostitution. That is pretty much how I supported my drug habit. I ran 2 escort services, and I was actually busted on TV. I got busted on the news in Polk County, Florida, in a prostitution sting, and was blasted on the news for like 3 days. It was so embarrassing. So then having to like carry that, guilt and shame of like missing, when my father died, I wasn't there because I was out in my addiction. So there were so many things that I had to work through when I got into recovery. But all of those things, they held me down in chains in my addiction. Like, it was like I couldn't get out of my addiction because I could not heal from the guilt and the shame that I carried, and the fear of, am I even worthy enough, like, to live? Is anybody even going to want to have anything to do with me anymore after all these terrible things that I did? And it was so hard. And going into recovery, I had to really, really commit myself to working on myself, to truly healing. A lot of people, they get into recovery and they want to distract themselves with things, feel good kind of things, getting into relationships, keeping real busy with jobs, trying to jump too quickly back into that family mom lifestyle. I really took my time, and it was because, so my pathway in the beginning was 12-step. So I did a 12-step program, which I started with, NA, AA, Celebrate Recovery. And also I was in a discipleship. My faith is huge in my recovery. And I had a spiritual mentor that I studied under for 4.5 years. And he was a certified addiction counselor and also a pastor. And he took me through grief counseling. And so I went through grief counseling, and that, coupled with doing my step work, working the 12 steps, is what really helped me to become whole. But I had to fully dedicate myself to that. Even when I hit 18 months sober, I realized, I was still trying to sweep everything under the rug. Like, I was almost embarrassed to say, I'm a woman in recovery and I have 18 months sober. I was ashamed, still carrying all of that unforgiveness big time, figuring out, God, what do you even think about me? How do you even see me after these terrible things that I've done? So working through all of that shame and guilt through steps and through prayer and through building a relationship with, my higher power, who I choose to call God, and just finding somewhere inside of me the tiniest bit of worthiness and saying, I am worthy to recover. I am worthy of a good life. I am worthy of my dreams and aspirations coming true. I am worthy of people treating me respectfully and in a healthy manner, and setting healthy boundaries, and realizing that, I was worthy of all those things, and I was worthy of forgiveness for myself and for my family. And it was a lot, and it took serious dedication to healing. It was like a full-time thing, while everybody else I went through a sober living community. So it was a 1-year program. I stayed there for 3.5 years. I didn't want to leave. It was working, and it was safe as a woman, I've been through, prostitution. You can imagine the innumerable amount of times that I've been assaulted, sexually assaulted. And so it was a safe place for me. So that was one of the reasons why I stayed for so long too. And, it wasn't until I think I had about, I'm going to say, let's see, it was in 2019 when I became a certified addiction recovery empowerment specialist through Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, that I finally said, what are you ashamed of, Jamie? Why are you so embarrassed of the fact that you walked through a fire and made it out unscathed, not burned? I went through things that people could not make it through. People would not have wanted to live another day dealing with, the things that I went through. And, I went from being homeless, destitute, hopeless, to owning my own business, having my own home, having my own car, having a community of friends, being a leader in my community. And it just clicked one day. You've done all these accomplishments. I even created a protocol for massage and recovery. I did all of these things, and it was like I still had this feeling of guilt and shame. And that was when I realized that I was going to speak out about recovery, and I was going to speak out loud, and I was going to tell everybody, I am in recovery. I am not ashamed. I am empowered. And it was when I lost that, I call them that, the chains of anonymity. When I lost my chains of anonymity, my guilt and my shame and everything was just broken. And I became truly empowered to help other women and other people, all over the world, and just wear my recovery loud and proud.
That's wonderful. I love that. And yeah, it's like those emotions are there. I feel like they are temporarily there to help us realize certain things, and we shouldn't use them for a long period of time as a friend or as a crush. Basically, like fear prompt up to do certain things. When we have shame, we ask ourselves, why is shame there, or why is guilt there? And then it helps us to do something about it. But being stuck in the abyss of like feeling good moment of it is like totally not good. And also it's great that you're no longer having those emotions or feelings, because what helped me personally was I was like, I'm a human being and we all have the same thing happening to us. So why should I be shamed or guilty about? Because we all did things. And even if you don't see someone doing something, they have skeleton in their closet that they have not told someone about. So therefore we all guilty of something. So why should I beat myself down being guilty about anything or shame? So I just know them and I just can do better. So I was writing down when you were talking, and the word that came to my head was redemption. Like, you were redeemed. And so how did you feel all these things happening to you, and you had the shame and guilt, and then you're obviously doing better now, but society, humans are forgiving, but tend to basically, how do you call it? Like right now, like cancel culture, people love to just cancel you for what you did. And if you say, okay, I'm better now, I'm redeemed, and then they tend to like doubt you and basically have you gone through the ring to prove yourself. Like, did you have to go through that, or how did it feel if you went through that?
What comes to mind when we're talking about this is I really had to go through that with my family. They say it in recovery, they say, the promises come true, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And with my family, it was sometimes slowly. Like, it was way slowly. Like, my mom, she did not want to truly let me in her heart. She did not want to let that wall down, because I hurt her over and over and over again. I went to detox 8 different times. You know what I mean? Every time it was, no, I'm really going to do it this time. No, I'm really getting better this time. No, I'm really finished this time. No, for real. I'm really done this time, and every time it was the same thing. And with my children, I was that mom that was like, my son would say, Mommy, will you bring me to the bus stop, walk me to the bus stop in the morning? And I'd be like, yeah, of course I will. I will definitely be there. I promise. And then not show up for like a week. I was that mom that, my son was like, Mommy, will you read me a bedtime story? Of course I will. Go downstairs. I'll be right there. And then I just take off, So it took so long for my family to trust me. You know what I mean? I used to steal from my kids' piggy bank, I mean, and it was just like, my family, I'm telling you, I've put them through the ringer, you know what I mean? From them having to bail me out of jail to picking me up, crashing automobiles, you name it. I've done it. And it took so long. It was literally during around like COVID and lockdown. I don't know what happened. It was something God moved. It was like one swift move. And all of a sudden, it was like my mom's arms opened up, and she just forgave me. And she like asked me to come move back home and all this stuff, and I was like, well, I have my own place now, but so I didn't go move back in with her. My kids still live with her. But it took 5 years. It took me being 5 years sober for my mom to say, okay, I get it. Like, you're changed, you're done. And now my mom is like my best friend, my biggest fan. My biggest advocate, my biggest defender, but I'm telling you, she couldn't stand me. Yeah. And I guess she was maybe just trying to guard her heart,
I can totally feel that. And I feel for both sides. I feel for you and I feel for them. It's like looking at you and you looking at them, because I've had friends in the past, and I recently had someone that I was somewhat in relationship with where he felt like everyone was giving up on him because he was in denial of being an addict. But then it's like hard because if you're in denial of it and you know all this stuff and people are leaving. So I made a vow, which was bad for me, to never leave him. And then eventually he left me. And I'm so glad that I mentioned some other podcasts where I've been known as straight edge. I've been straight edge. And because we were doing this kind of relationship stuff, like I got lost in it, and I did coke so I can keep him around, like that one time. And so that was like very bad of me, and it was like a learning experience. And for 10 months I was in depression, and it's interesting how, like, I don't know if he's in recovery now because he doesn't live here anymore, but he was going in and out of rehab, and everyone was leaving him because all this stuff he was doing. So I was just like, I'm not gonna leave you, I'm gonna stay there. And they end up leaving me, and I'm grateful that I didn't continue in the path that he presented to me, because then I feel like I probably will be using while he's just like not there, and now I have this thing to handle myself. Because I've noticed, I've spoken to a lot of women actually, they got in a relationship with a man and the men got them into those stuff, and the men left or went to jail or died, and then they left with addiction. And they're like, I never had this in my life, now look what I have. So it's very interesting. One thing I also wrote down, and I wanted to ask you just briefly, what are the 12 steps? Like, if you can name them for the audience so we know.
Sure. Yes. So step 1 is admitting that you are powerless over drugs and alcohol. And you can put in anything for this. Like, you can be powerless over people, places, things, bad habits, eating disorders, fear-based behavior, whatever. So you would say, admitted that we were powerless over drugs and alcohol, and that our lives had become unmanageable. So meaning that even if we take away the drugs and alcohol, our lives are still unmanageable. Step 2 is, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So basically what we're saying there is, we believe that something greater than ourselves can help me so that I don't think it's a good idea to drink or do drugs or do harmful behaviors, right? Step 3, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. That one is huge. It's something that you have to do every day. So every day we are making this decision that God, it's, your will, not mine, be done. And we're making this decision to turn our thoughts and our actions over to the care of the God of our understanding. Now, step 4 and step 5 is when we do our personal inventory, a rigorously honest personal inventory. And that basically is, so we write down all of our resentments. We write down all of our fears, and we also do a sexual inventory. So anytime that we have used sex to manipulate or in any kind of way, so we write all of that down. And in step 5, we share them with a sponsor or a person that we trust. So you could use a spiritual advisor, you could do a sponsor, you could do a mentor. And so you go over them in step 5. And so that's really takes a lot of trust and a lot of prayer to basically give all your dirty laundry to a person that you really don't know all that well, right? That you've met in this program. So then you have step 6 and step 7, which is made a list of all our character defects. Step 7, we ask God to humbly ask God to remove all of our defects of character. So writing down jealousy, anger, rage, all of these things that when we look at our inventory, what drove us to act this way? Was it, fear? Was it jealousy? Was it insecurity? Was it self-seeking? Was it dishonesty? Was it being inconsiderate? What were these things? And everything pretty much is fear-based. Basically for us, everything is, we are acting out of, out of fear. So 6 and 7, working on all these, character defects. And then you have steps 8 and 9, made a list of persons that we had harmed and decided to make amends to them all. So 8 and 9 is something that you kind of do like your whole life, pretty much. You like put the list, the people willing, not willing, or not able. Some people you have to make a living amends because they might not be around, they might have died or something. Or, some people just might not be healthy for you to contact. So you're going to make a living amends by, staying sober, doing the next right thing. And then you have, and step 9 is when you, when you carry that out. Step 10 is, doing a daily inventory. So basically that's like at night, you're kind of like going over your day in your head, like, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what could I have, changed, and you make it right away. Like if you lost your temper with your friend because they said something at the end of the night, you're doing your inventory, like, man, I shouldn't have lost my temper. You make it right away. Then you have step 11, which is sought through prayer and meditation to have conscious contact with the God of your understanding. So that's just like really, really putting time aside to learn how to meditate and pray to your higher power. And then step 12 is carry the message to all suffering addicts out there. So step 12 is, what I live my life in every day.
Yeah, basically servicing and giving back. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I feel that, and please correct me if I'm using the wrong word. I feel like, I want to say normal, but I don't want to use that word, but like a better word. I feel like anybody can use those steps. I feel like those are fundamentally needed in everyone's lives. Then everyone, I feel like then most people, they wouldn't even had to go through the step or of using, I feel. Because
everybody can benefit from a 12-step program.
Yes. Even hearing you saying that, and I'm like, because I do the path of spirituality, and I feel like, there's a lot of stuff that you're mentioning that I've done without knowing specifically the 12 steps as I do now. And I'm like, I've done this, I've done that, but I've learned it later on in life. And I'm grateful for that. But then it would be nice if at least in high school, we're taught these things. And most of us by choice, because of course you had to choose to do or not. Then I feel like a lot of people would choose to not do the drugs or even like the stealing or the lying, etc., because they know. But of course, it's all a choice because some people know and they still don't, and that's fine. But I think that's really needed. That's amazing. And so on the step 2, I've noticed one step 2, if someone wants to recover, example, I've met a lot of atheists, and if they said they don't believe in higher power, period, or they don't believe in God, are they still be able to do the step 2? Because since it seems like step 2 and step 10 with the meditation, and so
So basically, what we tell people is that anything can be your higher power. You can choose a doorknob to be your higher power, because basically all it does when you create a higher power is that you are not running your life anymore. You are giving your will over to something else. Your sponsor can be your higher power. You could have a spiritual mentor that can be your higher power.
Yeah. Why is it important to give something or someone like God your higher, like your power, that you cannot do it to yourself? Why is that? Is it because in the past of history, like you couldn't, obviously, kind of a thing?
Because we make really bad choices. Because we are like self-will run riot. You know what I mean? Like, this sounds like a great idea to Jamie, but is it really a good idea? which is why we want to always run it by somebody, or, pray about it first, or think about it first, or, just look at it in a different perspective. They say a lot in recovery, play the tape through, because for me, it might sound like a good idea. Like for me, I might say, oh, I can go hang out with my old friends. That won't be a bad idea. I'll be a good influence for them being sober, right? Even though I know they're still using. Like, that's a really good idea if I go over and see them and hang out with them, even though they're still using, because they'll be able to look at me and say, oh, she's sober. Now we can get sober. You know what I mean? To me, in my mind, that sounds like a really good idea. But is it a really good idea? No. And if we run it by someone, if we stop and play the tape through and really think about it, our first ideas are not always the best ideas, because our ideas got us where we're sitting right now. And this is, our seed in recovery. So.
Yeah, that's a very great point. Definitely. Because like I said, if I feel like, since I talked to some people, it seems like you may have your addiction could be your genetics, or if you went through some trauma, or you had some depression going on, or it seems like it's often something prior, and then you're trying to drown out those emotions, and then you get addicted, etc. And I'm so glad through my discovery of something I discovered, a trauma that I had in 2020. The trauma was being afraid of being vulnerable. So therefore, I was showing that I'm always like a strong man, then show emotion and all this stuff. And also being afraid to, basically being afraid to see that I'm human, and always showing a hard shell. And when I got in relationship with that person and they helped me, well, it was like me as well, but them as a tool to like say, hey, you don't need to be feeling this way, or etc. And so, and then basically my fear was I didn't want to be vulnerable, but then because I know like if I wasn't, I would be hurt, which I was hurt anyway, but it still showed me that, it's like, it's human. You're going to deal with human, and hurt. Basically, you might feel like you're hurt, but you weren't, or even if you actually was hurt, like, so what? You learn something and then you can grow from it, and it's a lesson. And so I was just like, okay, fine. So being vulnerable is something that I'm still learning. And this is one of the reasons that I started a YouTube channel by myself. And then as I noticed other people have similar stories and people wanted to be on the podcast, so I was like, okay, let me have other people. So it morphed into something greater than I thought initially. And so I'm glad where it is now, because you never know.
And it's so attractive too, like vulnerability and authenticity are so attractive, you know what I mean? And it's like people are drawn to it, because they, a lot of people don't want to show that, that they have hurts, that they have had things happen. They don't want to show that. But, when you show it, I mean, it's like people are like, oh, I can relate to that. I understand that. Like, you're speaking my language. Like we're on the same frequency,
Yeah.
And
yes,
it's able for you to be trusted. Like, well, since you went through this and you shared it with me, I know I can trust you, and I can tell you about my experience.
Most certainly, I've noticed that. And also going through depression that I never experienced before for 10 months. Now I had the empathy, and now I can like really feel what someone went through it. Because for me, it was just a story, and I would have all the pep talk about it, which I still do, but the pep talk of like the motivations without actually knowing what they're going through. But now I know what they're going through. Now I can apply empathy in my pep talk, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you've spoken about suicide. So can you bring us back, like, why did you attempt suicide, and how did it feel when you wanted to have that happening?
So this was really, there was a lot. I mean, I just didn't want to live, it is so tiring. I don't know if you've ever been, addicted to opiates, but it is a very tiring cycle having to wake up every day and figure out how you are going to, not be sick that day. Like, how am I going to not be sick today? What am I going to do? Because being in opiate withdrawal is very painful. It is very miserable. It is something that, I don't want anybody to have to go through. And so when I was addicted to pain pills, I tried to go to the methadone clinic. That was one time. So I was going to the methadone clinic, but I still was using. So I was getting methadone, and then I was also using on top of it. And one time the counselor brought me in and he told me, so Jaime, why are you trying to kill yourself? And I was like, kind of caught off guard. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you scored 100 on your drug test. Like, so I was positive for everything on my drug test and methadone. I mean, that's like such a deadly cocktail, you know what I mean? And I just kind of laughed at him and said, well, it must have been a good week then, and that was kind of like how I did everything. Like, I did it because I wanted to do so much that I didn't want to be here anymore. And especially when I had my daughter. When I had my daughter and they just like took her from me right away, and then her having to be sick in the NICU, I could not handle the disgust I felt for myself. I could not believe that I could have done this to another child. How could I do this? Like, I said I wasn't going to do it. I didn't understand the disease of addiction. I did not understand that I had a disease of my brain, and that is why I couldn't stop. In my head, I was like, I am such a pathetic piece of shit mom, like, I am so pathetic. I can't stop using. Even being pregnant, I couldn't stop using. No matter what, I couldn't stop using. And I hated myself for that. So when I had my daughter, and I mean, they took custody from me right away. They gave custody to my mom, which is, but she was so angry at me too, but I was not allowed to be in the same room as her, unsupervised. Not allowed to be in the same room as her. I mean, it was just heart-wrenching. Like, I cannot tell you, like, the feeling inside of me. I felt like my heart and my guts had been ripped out, and like, it was just like twisting inside of me. It was so painful. And I couldn't stop crying. I ended up getting like a bottle of Klonopin and trying to eat like a bottle of Klonopin to kill myself, because I was just done with myself. I was like, you are such a piece of shit. You don't even deserve to live anymore, and just want to take myself out, and it didn't work, and it didn't work. And then I had, my psychiatrist was talking to Defects, like, there's something wrong with her. She's, trying to get all these, because I was trying to get another bottle of Klonopin, and it was terrible. It was terrible. And then after that, me and my kid's father had broken up. He was really bad on heroin. And I started doing meth and got really stuck on that. Ended up being with like this group of guys that ended up trafficking me. And, I left my mom's house, left the kids, didn't want to it's like I couldn't be there. There was too much guilt and shame. And my mom was so mad at me. I just couldn't be there. I didn't have the coping skills to deal with the pain, with the guilt, with the trauma, with anything. And so I ended up kind of just going off, ended up with this group of guys. And they ended up keeping me, constantly drugged up, from one person to the next. And it was basically like, there was a couple times that I wanted to leave there. this was right here in Loganville, Georgia. There was a couple of times when I wanted to leave there, and, you know, they would kind of just laugh at me and like shake a pill bottle at me and be like, oh yeah, you want to leave? You know, and I would just like sit back down because I knew if I left, I was going to be sick. And where was I going to go?
So did you feel helpless, like no one would help you? Because I've noticed on some groups, because I join a lot of the groups, there's someone making memes of, example, Addicts Life Matter. I don't know if you know that group, where there's people make memes sometimes. They're saying that Addicts Lives Matter, as in to stop the shame of addicts. Our lives matter, like see us, we have a disease, things happening, etc. And there is this, what's that word? Stigma. And there is that shame and all these things attached to it. And I do understand, because I've seen both sides, and I do understand how someone can have distrust and all this stuff, because I've had people in my home that have stolen things. And I'm grateful that I have a attitude. If you feel like you're gonna take something from my space, if it's that important for you, it was yours to begin with. And I don't believe that owning things anyway. I believe that I have something, and then if you've taken it without permission, or if I give it to you, then I'm just moving things around, because even this body is not mine. We all came from this earth.
Right.
So people have taken things, and of course I don't trust them anymore because of that trust thing. But at the same time, I have the compassion and understand where they're coming from. And but for safety, I cut the ties, but still I do understand, and I love them at a distance. So that's pretty tough. Even my sister, she doesn't believe it, but growing with her, she's a chronic liar. And currently, and again, like I've let it go. She owes me close to $40,000 because I closed down a student loan, and it's like, that's a long story, but and her reason for not paying, she says, you're a man and you can do it. And it's true. Like I paid off $40,000, and I even had to save money on top of it to move to New York City. I was able to do on my own, but that's $40K that I could have had extra. Yeah. But I've moved on, and I'm forgiving her, and I have the compassion, but I love her at a distance, because, and that's why we were talking about going in and out for 8 times. It's like, I understand how you feel, and I understand how they feel. And it's a tough situation. And but for her, she hasn't admitted anything, but if she ever came, I think, to admit it, then I feel like, okay, she's on a path to recovery then, because it's, as you mentioned in the 12 steps, you need to know what you're doing and be aware and make amends. And she's not doing that. So therefore she still believes that she knows she owes me money, but hey, I'm the youngest brother too. She feels like, oh, you're a man and your family, so it's okay. So I cannot trust her because of that. So it's tough. So please tell us about your entrepreneurial adventures, all the good stuff happening in your life.
So let's see, in 2016, I had 6 months sober, and I started to take the steps to become a massage therapist. That was my first thing. So I actually went to school in 2006 for massage therapy. And I got kicked out of school because I got arrested in a prostitution sting. And I was heavy in my drug addiction. I was addicted to crack cocaine. It was crazy time in my life. I call that like the worst year I ever spent in the bathroom, because I just stayed in the bathroom. It was terrible. That had always been like a dream of mine to be a massage therapist, but I didn't think, because of getting in trouble and all this stuff, I didn't think that I would be able to be a massage therapist. Well, in the first year of my recovery, I actually I call it like divine appointment. happened to get a job working somewhere. I was working at a Massage Envy, and I was just going to be like a front desk person. And the general manager was on like the Georgia Board of Massage. And she was like, "Oh, you went to massage therapy school?" I was like, "Yeah."
All right. So I started my own business in 2018, Miracle Massage Group. I also then created a protocol for people in recovery. So I am super passionate about two things, and one is massage and one is recovery. So I thought, what a better way than to put them together and be able to help people in early recovery through massage therapy. And so I can literally take someone who is in early recovery, who's having a terrible day, who wants to go relapse, who's totally triggered, full of trauma, and I can literally turn their day around in just 30 minutes. So I use essential oils, acupressure points, colored lights, music frequencies, and different affirmations, and basically just working on them for literally 30 minutes can change their whole day. It can change their whole day. So doing that. And then also I started a recovery coaching business. So I became certified with Georgia Council on Substance Abuse as a certified peer specialist for addictive disease. And when I did that, I was working for a nonprofit organization called Divas Who Win Freedom Center. We help women who are coming through human trafficking, getting out of trafficking, prostitution, women in recovery. And that is where I created the Wellness Room, which is a room for massage therapy for those women to help them with their trauma through spa treatments and massage, just giving them a real feeling of self-worth and value, and giving them a safe space that they can, relax and be pampered. And so started my business, Miracle Massage Group, like I said, in 2017. I just actually won Therapist of the Year for Athens, Georgia this year. So that's really exciting. And, I've been running this business, successful. I mean, it was crazy, really. I just, starting a business was so scary to me. I was working at Massage Envy where they were giving me all my clients. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start my own business. And I had maybe like 6 or 7 people I was working on the side. And it was like, I didn't even skip a beat. I just put full faith in God and just did it. And it was amazing. And it's been amazing and successful ever since. During the pandemic shutdown is when I started my YouTube ministry. So basically, I started doing talks. First, it was on like Facebook. I had a couple groups, a spiritual fitness group, and I had a group where I was working with women coming out of trafficking. And I started, doing these talks during shutdown, and all of my friends, they were reaching out to me and they were like, "Wow, Jaime, like, this is really helpful. Like, you're, the things that you're saying, because we were all shut down. We couldn't go to meetings. We couldn't meet up. We were, quarantined to our houses, and it was scary, right? It was so scary. We didn't know, probation wasn't seeing people. The sober living facilities, one sober living facility kicked out like 10 people, just told them, "Hey, you got to go. We're shutting down. That's it." So it was like a time of fear and uncertainty. So I started doing these talks, and then that was where I met my husband. So I met my husband online. He was a YouTuber, a motivational speaker for recovery, and he had commented on one of my posts. And we ended up kind of talking. He actually helped me develop my YouTube channel because he had already had his for like a year and a half or 2 years or something. So he helped me develop my YouTube channel and get everything and taught me about video editing and stuff like that. And then we met actually in person because he was from Fort Myers, Florida. I'm in Athens, Georgia. And he was doing a tour. So he was going to like 3 different states to go speak do motivational speaking for recovery. And he said, hey, I want to stop in Athens and see, how you guys do recovery, because Athens is very unique in recovery. Athens is home of University of Georgia. So basically you are either part of UGA or you are in recovery in the whole city. It's amazing. It's an amazing place. So we're a very tight-knit community. And so we work with, all of the government officials, and we work with the police, and we work with the probation, and we all work together. And that is how the recovery community works here, which is very different from, other places where things are very separated. So he said he wanted to come and see what our recovery was like. And so we met July 11th. And we were engaged by November 11th. And then we just got married on October 1st. So
nice.
It was.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I saw the wedding photos that you posted. Very beautiful.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Wow. And I am so proud of you. And I'm very happy that you're doing all of this. And please tell me how you feel about this statement. For a long time, and I'm not someone that's gone through all the stuff you've gone through, or many people I interviewed who've gone through those things. I just in awe and in admiration of going through all of this and basically a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And it's so amazing. And so I've often say, and of course, being spiritual now, I see people talking about it, but I've often say even within me that life happens for me, and anything that happens is for my own good and for my growth. And even when I was in high school, people would call me brisk, they'll call me hard, or I have no compassion, or there's another word common word people use, but I never saw myself like that, because I'm just real. That's the thing. I was just real, raw, and to the point. And so later on, I had to learn to have a soft into my blow of how I how you call it, communicate or deliver things.
Right.
I had to learn those things. But I've often, I would tell people, those things happening for you, they're for you, and they're a lesson, and it's for your growth and things like that. And I had to discover that it is true, but at the same time, there's a time and there's a place and there's a way to tell people certain things for them to hear it or listen, or for it to do that click for them. Because and it's a skill.
Yes.
Because I'm hearing everyone's story and your story, even my story, which compared to anybody, it was minuscule. I met this person and we thought we were in love, but we fell in trauma bond, and he was using. And at the end of it, because I was okay, I want to keep you around. So I tried drinking and those things that I never done. And then he ended up leaving me. And I was wow, I went that low to want to keep somebody, to even do drugs and drink and smoke. And I don't do those things. Where was my headspace? And so I went to that shame and that guilt and the judgment and that depression, which I never experienced before, for 10 months. And one day I just woke up and I was done with it. And I didn't even work on anything for 10 months, but I was just that's very interesting. So when that 10 months was over, around, I think, July of 2021, that's when I was thinking of okay, I need, as you're saying, speak out loud and tell your story and doing the ministry. And I was yes. You know what? I'm tired of shaming myself. I'm tired of feeling guilty. I'm tired of judging myself. Let me have videos and tell people. So I was being on the fence about it. Not until September, I was just you know what? I'm just going to do it, because 2020 had canceled me. I'm not working. So if people know my dark, they're not even dark compared to anything, just my thing I'm thinking is dark secrets, then who cares? And also because I learned about vulnerability, I was just I'm just going to be vulnerable. One way to get rid of phobias is to attack it head on, because I had this trauma of vulnerability all my life. And he helped me to see it. So I was just like, I'm just gonna be vulnerable online. And then I'm not sure if you said it or someone else I was talking to earlier said that, like, yeah, you said it, I think. Once you show this humanity of yourself, then people are gonna be like, oh, then people will be more likely to talk to you and confide in you. And as you did and many other people did, because people see my videos and like, I love this. Can I be part of it? Can I tell my story too? And I never thought of that. Like, it's like from September, October last year to here now, it's like what, 3 or 4 months. I made no plans of doing any of that, but I just trust the process of like, you know what, it is that, let me just continue doing it, because my reasoning is the virus has canceled me. Now I'm working at home, so I'm just gonna do me and whatever.
Right. You ebb and flow, just work with it.
Yeah, and it's also great to meet so many people like you. And I didn't know that world existed, like people who would tell their story, because the YouTubes I actually usually watch is inspirational speakers and books and self-help books and just like little cute stuff online or a movie, whatever. But until I was meeting people, then I watched like channels like yours and other people, and I didn't know people were telling their stories that deep, because I wanted my podcast to be very raw and deep. And I was like, damn, they're deep. And so I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I love that, because we're human. And for me personally, I'm tired of the shame, guilt, and the fear and the judgment for myself. Because if I was doing it for myself, I was doing it to others as well. And so I stopped all of that. And even the person that left, till this day, I never had any, what's that word? Disdain for him or anything bad, because I understand where he's coming from, and which helped me. Oh yeah, my point was that whatever's happening to you at the moment will help your present will help your future, and your past help your present right now. So I tell people, you know what, whatever it was, if you know that, don't shame yourself and don't beat yourself down, because I was beating myself down for like those 10 months of like, I'm straight edge. How could I? I'm straight edge. How could I step so low to do drugs with a guy so I can keep him around, and he left me anyway. And I was depressed for 10 months about it. And
it's
and
really
like,
common.
Forget it. Yeah, it's
very common. Yes, it's so common. I mean, I've done all kinds of stuff like that to keep someone around. So
yeah,
you are not alone.
Yeah, and that's another theme too. You're not alone, because we often think we're alone. And with the suicide part too, like, actually, I only attempted suicide when I was living at my parents' house when I was in my teen years, because I grew up Jehovah's Witness, and some people call it a cult. People can call it whatever they want, but I was like in a space of like, I was a true believer, but I was so alone. I had no friends. My friends were Pokemons, and that could not even be my friend, because my mom get me a big down one time. I don't know if you know the Pokemon song, when I was singing Pokemon, You Are My Best Friend, and she gave me a bid down just for that. And so like, I had no friends, and I couldn't even have them as my friends. So I was just like this little person in a home, like, what the hell is this? I attempted 3 times, and I woke up, and every time I woke up, I was so pissed off. And I even prayed for God to take my life away, because I was just like, I was in misery until my school, I want to say guidance counselor, but she was a counselor. She was just like, the best way is not to kill yourself, because when you do, they're just going to move on. You can actually move on with your life as well, because that's possible. And you're not alone. There's people who cares. And as the guy who was my housemate, he would often tell me, no one cares. And I wanted to prove to him that I care, because he was saying his parents didn't care, society didn't care,
Right.
etc. And so, and I've noticed like what's inside of you is what you put out, because I'm not gonna say he doesn't care, but in the storyline, how he would kept saying that and believing that, and then he just left and did all the stuff. So that would show that because he mistrusts people so much and doesn't think people care, that he didn't care about me either. So if you change your mindset or what you say to yourself, your meditation or your mantra, that yes, there's people that's going to be caring. So when you do that 12 steps of giving back, so therefore, when you're giving back, is because you care and because you love. So therefore, you know others do the same. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So how are you? So you've told us how you, because I usually ask, how are you living your best life? So you just told us all of that. So what was your takeaway of your experience, and why is it important for you to tell your story, like you having that YouTube channel and tell your story today?
So, the biggest thing that I have learned from my experience is that I am not a terrible person, that I am a very valuable person in this world. I have a lot that I can give to people. And I've learned that helping people is like my love language in life, service.
So mine's too, my number one.
Yes. So service for me is my love language. So doing things for others and helping other people is what fills my cup and makes me happy. And I can see that all the way, even in my addiction, and now, I get to live my life with faith. The awesomest thing that I learned in recovery is that I can do anything I want to do, anything I want. Now that I know who I am, I know whose I am, and I know, what I have inside of me, I can do anything that I want to do.
Yes. And
that is so important and so freeing. And it just is, it's like the sky's the limit, I get to work at my business every day. I get to help people. I get to pay for my daughter to go to private school. I get to watch her take horse lessons that I get to pay for. I get to do all of these things, right? It's not like I have to do them or they're like bad things. Like all these things I get to do. I get to, put my clothes on, whatever I want to wear, for that day, and, fix my hair and my makeup and go just slay my day. I get to do that. I get to be healthy. I get to work on my health and fitness, which is like a huge thing for me. I get to do all of these things. I have a life that is so fulfilling, and I get to choose what I want to allow in my life and what things I don't want to allow in my life. Mm-hmm. And there's a choice there. And that is so freeing to know how much freedom I really have in my life. I can go anywhere and do anything that I want to do. I remember when I first got out of jail this last time, and I went and I met with the counselor at the probation office, who was a deacon. And he said to me, I am free. I can go anywhere I want to go and do anything I want to do. And that, I couldn't even comprehend that statement. Like, what does that mean? What does that really mean? And today I understand it, and I get to walk in it. And it's amazing. I have a beautiful life, and it speaks volumes to other people, and it lets people know that, There is nothing that you cannot overcome. There is nothing that you cannot heal from. And you just have to, make a choice. And it's not perfect. We just make a choice to do it, taking one step at a time, one day at a time.
Definitely great message. And all of that is true. And it's kind of like, well, not sad, because I feel like eventually people will see it, hopefully, that a lot of people don't see what you're talking about. And I think because like in life, something has to click for you. But even for me, things had to click for me. And then I see, like Dr. Wayne Dyer would say, now I can see clearly in this book. So not until then, sometimes you cannot see it. And so that's a great message. And I usually tell people when people say it's impossible, I saw a meme that says, impossible is I am possible.
Yes.
Yeah. Another meme that says, I am an American, not an American.
Right. I like that. I never saw that before.
Yeah, it's a little corny, but
I love it. I love it. That's right.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for your inspirational story, and for inspiring others, and for servicing others, and for doing what you're doing, and hearing your story and everyone else's story. It's like food for me, just like give me drive and make me, even like things that I already believe and do in my life, go like, okay, so as I mentioned, like the story that I went through was just last year, and to me it's like minuscule. And
right,
but when it was happening, it was huge. And even that was like small compared to what you went through and many other people. And so therefore it really shows that, as you're saying, anything is possible. You can do anything, and it's a choice. And people have to know that. I spoken to a friend recently. He was going through something, and he talked about suicide. And I told him, I was just like, I don't like to, be preachy to people, because I tend to have an inspirational speech. So I was just like, okay, I don't need to do that. But I told him, I was just like, if you need me to get a flight to where you are, I'll be there. Or if you need to get out where you are to be here, I'll be here. And you probably heard it before. You're thinking people are just saying it to be nice, but I'm truly telling you, I'm going to be there for you, because again, like my love language is servicing, and I'm very also, as a person, I'm dedicated person. If I'm dedicated into something or somebody, I'm there full on. So I told him that, and I was just like, so that trust is yours. And I understand, like, some people, when it comes to suicide, I actually made a video about that. People tend to tell you all those cliche words, but do they really mean it? And if you're going through that society, as I have, we know that some people just say it to be nice, but then we still feel alone. So it's like, it's really hard to get out of that. And I'm glad I've gotten out of that. And so, but I know a lot of people are still struggling with that. Even if they weren't going through addiction, they're struggling through suicide with depression or whatever else they're going through. So great stories.
Just know that whatever you want to dream and aspire is possible.
Definitely.
Okay,
yeah, that's
awesome.
All. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good one. Good night.
You too. Bye.